Okay, as I did a few days ago, I did a five-part little series broken up so that you didn't have to watch 30 minutes or 40 minutes of me breaking things down as we currently know them. So a couple of things that I wanted to address today. This is going to be part one, and part one is going to be dealing with the legal aspects. And the legal aspects mainly centered around the fact that the IDEA didn't anticipate this, guys. I mean, it's an act of God, if you want to call it that, or if you have an insurance policy, you're familiar with disasters and how you pay insurance and you pay insurance, you pay insurance, but then there's certain things that aren't covered under your insurance policy. And that's going to be important as we understand these other concepts that we're going to discuss or that I'm going to touch on in another video segment. So it's important for you to understand that when it comes to the law, when it comes to putting all this together, nobody anticipated a pandemic, okay? Which, on one end, since we're the first ones to have to deal with this, it also provides us the opportunity to help future generations prepare because, see, we're the ones going through it. We're the ones going through it now. So that's the aspect that I want to sit there and talk about with regards to the law. Guys, you can sit there and argue all day long. That's what I do. I sit there and I file complaints. And then we present these things on occasion to hearing officers and to the federal court. And there's things that come out of these cases called case law. Okay. And this case law, just like the Andrew F case started in Colorado and the parents lost. They appealed it. They lost again at the appellate level, and then they appealed it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided to hear it. The Supreme Court reversed the other lower courts. And you go, oh, great, James. Yes and no. Guys, any kind of legal case that you go into always carries a risk of creating what's called bad law. All right. And bad law happens all the time, it's everywhere. I have to sit there and navigate around what I believe is bad law. Now, how did it become bad law? Well, it became bad law because either the parent or the attorney on either side, I'm talking about the school's attorney, primarily the school attorney, um, and that's just because whether they win or lose, they get paid. So, the motivation level or having a board attorney have some crazy thought that they're like, well, let's go ahead and test this. Well, there's no risk to them, is there? Whether they win or lose. But a lot of bad law has come out of bad decisions by attorneys, or allowing the client, driven by emotion, to bring these things before courts. And the last thing you ever want to do with a due process case involving children and public resources is allow emotion to drive the force of the case. Okay? That's just not smart to do. Emotion is not and does not create good law. In fact, it does the opposite. So in this particular situation with regards to COVID-19 and the impact that it's having on the public schools and the impact that it's definitely having on families as well, is going to create this pull, this emotional pull out of disability groups, out of school lobbies, where they're going to sit there and want to knee-jerk react, and they're going to want to try to insulate or protect themselves or fight for the perceptive rights of their client, as though any of us have dealt with this before. We haven't. So everybody needs to sit there and put their guns away and just communicate and talk through this and find a way, a creative way, to sit there and structure this so that we can get through it to the back end. And the back end is a resumption of our traditional school year. Okay, which is not that far away. It's only a few months away if you look at it in the worst case scenario. And I am not. I frankly believe that things will resume sooner rather than later. Okay, that's me and my optimism. And if that's the case, it's going to play into how the additional options that are going to be open for school systems to be able to provide the distant learning, and also make additional offerings over the summer. But we'll get into that in one of the other videos. But when it comes to the dangers of law in areas that were not anticipated, guys, it is so much better to work together to create solutions. They're not going to be perfect ever. But what you're trying to avoid is you're trying to avoid the inertia to where you create a tsunami or an earthquake or something that you cannot control as the parent or as the public school system, to where you end up with bad law because attorneys are out there arguing your positions but aren't living through your positions. Be mindful of that. Because if you as parents are not careful, then what you are going to end up doing, either intentionally or inadvertently, whatever you want to call it, I really could care less. Because a parent's crescendoing cry of irritation is only going to create a situation to where limited waivers are created to address your loud mouth and your panicked approach. All right? Now, I am a parent attorney. I would hope to God that the board attorneys are telling the same thing to their school systems. And I know a few of them, and I respect, and I know that they're saying that to their districts, that this is a new road for all of us, and that we have to work together. We have to be creative. We have to find ways to sit there and find that middle ground for all involved. It is not going to be a perfect situation, but under these circumstances, because it was an act of God, it was an emergency situation, then throw the rules out the window, guys. Your insurance policy isn't paying out during this time period, if you catch my drift. We're just going to have to sit there and figure this out, which then, like I said in the beginning, allows us to create a new opportunity to sit there and write the rules for the next emergency. And I will discuss that when it comes to those things known as distant learning plans, or what I hope catches on as distant learning plans. There's a lot of opportunity there if you can sit there and think outside the box and think flexibly. In fact, yeah, who cares? You get what I'm saying. What you don't want to do is you don't want to sit there and dig in, be irrational, be inflexible, and then have you be the cause of some state going out there and saying, we need a limited waiver because, we have these parents that are just so, unreasonable. Do you want that to happen? Or do you want your state superintendent and your state special education director and your council of administrative special education directors to sit there and go to the feds and say, you know what? We found some middle ground. And, maybe the opportunity that we have, let's say in New Mexico and in Alabama, Tennessee and Georgia, those states where I have clients, in Texas, why don't we use this opportunity to sit there and find those solutions together to where we're held out as the model? We're held out as the example for all the other systems or all the other states of doing it right. And then having additional language added to the law that is more flexible and helps us serve more kids, because now everybody's attuned to think outside the box of the brick and mortar way that we've been doing things, which is rather archaic. This is an opportunity. Don't screw it up. As bad as it is, don't mess it up. Work together, because we don't want to create bad law on either side. And that's what panic does. We can work together, solve this problem, and then have the end result be better on the back end.